at 9. We'll also tell you all the other stories making news this Friday morning. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. First up, let's bring you the headlines in news this Friday morning. TV9's flagship annual summit, What India Thinks Today, to kick off in just a few hours from now. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will deliver the keynote address. Meanwhile, India and US trade talks progressing well, says Commerce and Industry Minister PIYUSH GOYAL, as the 5-day talks on the first tranche of trade talks conclude today. And in the wake of tariffs now announced on auto sector as well, gold climbs to record high. But Canada says it won't back down to Trump's tariff threats. Retaliatory tariffs are in the works. But markets not reacting well to news after news about tariff announcements. Wall Street buckles under pressure. And it's not just Wall Street, even Indian car makers and stocks, especially of Tata Motors, under pressure in the wake of auto tariffs announced by the US. Jaguar Land Rover US sales under question. Staying with the auto space, BYD, the Chinese electric vehicle maker, is all set to invest 85,000 crore rupees in a plant in Hyderabad. A battery plant also in the works, as per media reports. Meanwhile, a report says that quick commerce has made as much as 2/3 of all grocery orders, online grocery orders, in the gone by calendar year 2024. And in a sign of times that are changing, digital overtakes television in 2024, contributes 32% to all industry revenue. This as per a FICCI-EY report. Let's begin with the top story that we will be tracking all day today. It is a big day for the TV9 network because today our network, the most defining event of the year. This is going to be a platform where India's biggest minds, policy architects, business moguls and thought leaders will converge to shape the national and global discourse. Let's give you a sneak peek. Take a look at what we have in store for you on this edition of TV9 What India Thinks Today.
Brought to you by India's oral health partner Sensodyne, powered by Srinidhi University, kindle the light within. Special partner HP Lubricants, power to perform. Radico, spirit of excellence. प्रभु जी मिठाई हो या नमकीन, बस मौका चाहिए जी. टाटा इंट्रा गोल्ड पिकअप सक्सेस का मंत्र. सर्वोकॉन ट्रांसफॉर्मर एंड स्टेबलाइजर रखे सब कंट्रोल में सर्वोकॉन. गोल्ड पार्टनर Bhima marvelous March offers from 1st to 31st March. State partner Uttarakhand government. Viksit Arunachal Pradesh. Madhya Pradesh Shasan.
Well, those are all the partners to the TV9 What India Thinks Today conclave. And like we told you, it's the most powerful thought fest of 2025, bringing you face to face with ideas, debates and decisions that will shape the future, not just of India, but of the world. So let's tell you all about what's in store at this mega thought fest. Well, the event and its magnitude. Let's begin with that. Well, this year, TV9 has taken over the Grand Bharat Mandapam, the very heart of India's biggest summits, for 2 days of high-octane discussions, groundbreaking insights and unfiltered conversations. Now, at the very center of this power-packed conclave is a historic keynote address by none other than the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi. Let's listen in first to what Prime Minister Modi said at the TV9 What India Thinks Today conclave last year.
मैं अक्सर भारत की डाइवर्सिटी की चर्चा करता रहता हूं। इस डाइवर्सिटी को TV9 का न्यूज रूम आपकी रिपोर्टिंग टीम में बखूबी वो नजर आता है, ये रिप्रेजेंट करता है। TV9 के अनेक भारतीय भाषाओं में मीडिया प्लेटफॉर्म्स हैं। आप भारत की वाइब्रेंट डेमोक्रेसी, उसके प्रतिनिधि भी हैं। मैं अलग अलग राज्यों में, अलग अलग भाषाओं में TV9 में काम करने वाले सभी पत्रकार साथियों का, आपकी टेक्निकल टीम का बहुत बहुत अभिनंदन करता हूं। साथियों, आज TV9 की टीम ने इस समिट के लिए बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग टॉपिक चुना है। इंडिया पोइज्ड फॉर द नेक्स्ट बिग लीप। और बिग लीप तो हम तभी ले सकते हैं जब हम जोश में हो, ऊर्जा से भरे हुए हो। कोई हताश, निराश देश हो या व्यक्ति बिग लीप के बारे में सोच ही नहीं सकता। ये थीम ही अपने आप में ये बताने के लिए काफी है कि आज का भारत का आत्मविश्वास किस ऊंचाई पर है, आकाश क्या है। अगर आज दुनिया को लगता है कि भारत एक बड़ा लीप लेने के लिए तैयार है, तो उसके पीछे 10 साल का एक पावरफुल है। तो 10 वर्ष में ऐसा क्या बदला कि आज हम यहां पहुंचे हैं। ये बदलाव माइंडसेट का है, ये बदलाव सेल्फ कॉन्फिडेंस और ट्रस्ट का है, ये बदलाव गुड गवर्नेंस का, सुशासन का। साथियों, एक बहुत पुरानी कहावत है, मन के हारे हार है, मन के जीते जीत।
Well, just about 7 hours and 19 minutes to go for Prime Minister Modi to deliver his keynote address at the TV9 what India thinks today conclave this evening at Bharat Mandapam. So stay tuned all day to News 9 to get a sense of what is going to take place at that iconic Bharat Mandapam today. Well, moving on to other stories that we're tracking for you this morning on the morning brief at 9. First up, the ongoing talks between India and the US for a proposed trade agreement between the two countries is progressing well and will be good for both the nations while protecting India's interest. This is what Commerce and Industry Minister PIYUSH GOYAL said at an event yesterday. GOYAL said that he is in regular and constant dialogue with the industry from different sectors including agriculture, engineering, electronics, textiles and various interest groups. Now, PIYUSH GOYAL drew India's growth analogy with that of a flight, referring to Prime Minister Modi as the commander, saying that turbulence may come on the flight, but the pilot and the commander has complete control of the situation and the flight will not only land safely, but will have many more journeys of successful growth and successful flights. Well, his remarks assume significance as US President Donald Trump announced imposing reciprocal tariffs in the month of April on America's key trading partners, and this includes India. He has on multiple forums stated that India imposes high tariffs on US goods. The US has already imposed duties on China. Besides, higher import duties of 25% are imposed on steel and aluminum from March 12th. Now, on March 26th, Trump announced a sweeping 25% tariff on completely built vehicles and auto parts, a move set to take effect on April 3rd. Now, as we speak, a team of US officials headed by Assistant US Trade Representative for South and Central Asia, Brendan Lynch, is here in New Delhi for negotiations on a proposed bilateral trade agreement. The three-day talks will end today. India and the US are aiming to conclude the first phase, called the first tranche of the agreement, by the fall of 2025, expected between the month of September and October. They've also set a target to more than double the bilateral trade to $500 billion by 2030 from the current level of about $190 billion for the year 2024. While the US has demanded greater market access in sectors like industrial goods, automobiles, wines, petrochemicals and some agri items, India may look at duty cuts for labor-intensive sectors like textile. Gold prices in the meantime have surged back towards last week's record high on Thursday after US President Donald Trump revealed new tariffs on auto imports set to take effect next week. This move intensified global trade tensions, boosting increased demand for safe haven assets like gold. As a result, spot gold rose more than 1%, reaching more than $3,000 per ounce. More details in this report.
Gold prices climbed back towards last week's record high on Thursday. Investors piled in after US President Donald Trump announced new tariffs on auto imports. The move escalated the global trade tensions which have driven safe haven demand for gold. Spot gold had jumped more than 1% to $3,053 an ounce on the day. It was just a few dollars away from the all-time high it hit on March 20th. Gold is traditionally seen as a hedge against uncertainty and inflation, and it's risen more than 15% this year. One economist said US policy has caused uncertainties and driven gold's popularity. Trump on Wednesday unveiled a 25% tariff on imported cars and light trucks. It's due to come into effect the day after he plans to announce reciprocal tariffs aimed at the countries responsible for most of the US trade deficit. Some don't think the upward trend is over. On Wednesday, Goldman Sachs raised its gold price forecast for the end of the year to $300 per ounce.
And amid all this volatility with trade tariffs, Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney said that the country will soon respond to the new tariffs on imported vehicles announced by US President Donald Trump and could impose retaliatory measures against the US. Listen into what he said.
President Trump announced 25% tariffs against our auto industry. And this is a direct attack, to be clear, a direct attack on the very workers that I stood in front of, uniform workers I stood in front of this morning at the Ambassador Bridge. A bridge that is a symbol and a reality up until now of the tight ties between our two countries, ties of kinship, ties of commerce. ties that are in the process of being broken. We will defend our workers. We will defend our companies. We will defend our country. And we will defend it together. We've announced, of course, retaliatory tariffs. We have other options for those retaliatory tariffs. I have asked for a meeting, I will convene rather, a meeting of the Canada-US Cabinet tomorrow to discuss our trade options.
Well, it's not just Canada, it seems. Even Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba said that Tokyo will put all options on the table in response to Washington's decision to impose a 25% tariff on automobile imports. While Ishiba did not elaborate on specific countermeasures, he emphasized that his government will take necessary steps to protect national interest. Take a look.
We must consider the appropriate response to this announcement. Naturally, all options are on the table. We are one of the biggest investors in the United States. In fact, we are number one. When we consider this, is it right that all countries are treated the same? We have been making this point and will continue to do so. Japan has made substantial investments and generated significant employment in the United States. This is not the case for every country. We invest in America, we hire people, and we pay the highest wages.
And staying with the volatility that the tariffs are causing across the world, let's begin with the U.S. stocks that closed lower on Thursday as investors reacted to President Donald Trump's latest trade tariff announcement, which took a toll on shares of General Motors and Ford. The only short-term winner, at least in the foreseeable future, seems to be Tesla, whose stock rebounded sharply. Well, remember, Trump's unpredictable tariff policies have added to market uncertainty, adding to fears of global economic slowdown. Take a look.
U.S. stocks ended lower on Thursday, with the Dow and S&P 500 both dropping about 0.33% and the Nasdaq shedding more than 0.5%. President Donald Trump's mercurial tariff policies have created uncertainty on Wall Street and continue to fuel fears of a global slowdown. Ben McMillan is Chief Investment Officer and co-founder of IDX Advisors.
Generally seeing a lot of investors, repricing growth, repricing the AI trade, starting to favor more defensive stocks. And again, all of this is, directly tied to concerns about what the tariffs are going to look like. I joked to an investor earlier this morning that, markets don't like tariffs, markets don't like uncertainty, and markets hate tariff uncertainty.
Trump's plan to implement a 25% tariff on imported cars rocked shares of automakers. General Motors tumbled more than 7%, and Ford slid almost 4%. Shares of car parts manufacturers Aptiv and Borg-Warner also suffered substantial losses. But shares of Tesla were spared, edging up modestly, as investors bet the electric vehicle maker will be hurt less by tariffs because of its largely domestic production. Other movers included Lululemon Athletica, which closed higher but plummeted more than 10% in extended trading after the apparel company forecast annual revenue and profit below estimates as a refresh of its product line has failed to attract more customers. And shares of Dollar Tree jumped 11% as several analysts raised their price targets a day after the discount retailer said it sold its struggling Family Dollar business for about $1 billion. Investors on Friday will focus on the February Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, the Federal Reserve's favored inflation gauge.
Well, it wasn't just the U.S. stocks and the auto stocks in the U.S. that took a beating. In fact, the sentiment was seen even across Europe, and India was not spared as well. Well, U.S. President to slap 25% tariff on all auto imports has cast uncertainty over India's own nearly $7 billion worth of exports to America, which industry fears could squeeze margins. Now, automobiles and car parts imported to the U.S. would face a 25% tariff starting April 3rd. Now, while India is not really a big exporter of cars to the US, particularly Tata Motors' luxury car subsidiary Jaguar Land Rover is deeply entrenched in the American market. Now, as much as 23% of JLR's overall over 400,000 units sold in 2024 were in fact sold in the US. These were all exported from JLR's UK plants. Indian auto ancillary firms will also see a big hit as they export a lot of components to the US. Take, for example, a company like Sona BLW Precision Forging, Bharat Forge and Samvadna Motherson International. All of these are vulnerable to the tariff blow. Now, Sona BLW derives almost 43% of its total revenue from exports, while Bharat Forge gets 38% of its sales to the US. Now, according to industry estimates, India's auto components exports to the US were about $6.79 billion in FY24, while the country's imports from the US stood at just $1.4 billion at a 15% duty. Now, prior to Wednesday's announcement by Donald Trump, the US charged almost nil duty on imported components. And staying with news coming in from the auto sector, another big news that we are tracking for you this Friday morning comes by way of BYD, the Chinese electric vehicle maker, which according to reports is preparing to set up a production unit near Hyderabad in Telangana. This according to a report by ETV Bharat. This would make Telangana the first Indian state to host a BYD factory. The decision reportedly flows extensive discussions with the state government, which has assured its full support, including land allocation for the project. The Telangana government, according to the report, has suggested 3 potential sites for the facility, all located near Hyderabad. BYD representatives are currently assessing these locations, after which a final decision will likely be made. Once confirmed, an agreement is expected to be signed between the company and the state authorities. If the project proceeds as planned, Telangana will secure one of the largest private sector investments in the EV sector. Furthermore, this 85,000 crore rupee initiative could pave the way for the establishment of ancillary industries, including EV components, creating an automotive cluster around Hyderabad. For the past 2 years, BYD has been exploring options to set up a production facility in India. However, strict regulations on Chinese investments has delayed its plans. Well, beyond electric vehicle assembly, BYD is also planning to set up a 20 gigawatt battery manufacturing plant in India. Over the next 5 to 7 years, the company aims to ramp up production capacity to 600,000 electric vehicles annually. This expansion will require significant investment from BYD, which recently surpassed Tesla in generating almost $107 billion in revenue versus Tesla's $97.7 billion. Well, News 9's messages to BYD's management here in India were unresponded to at the time of recording this bulletin. Well, we will slip into a short break, but more stories coming up for you on the other side, so stay tuned to News 9.
What does it take to be the greatest in the world? There is one thing which truly sets you apart. Your inner strength. Sojiri DMT Reebok. True inner strength.
What is to the nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude. One that starts at your desk and sends a statement to the world. To the nines is about taking charge. It's a way of life where every seam, every fold, is crafted with excellence. It's timeless elegance and uncompromising quality made for the corner office. It's the ideas that inspire redefining order and elevating the tabletop. To the nines, for the leaders of today and the visionaries of tomorrow.
let's look at all the other you on this edition of Morning Brief at 9. As world leaders gathered in Paris to discuss Kyiv's defense and the prospects of future peace talks with Russia, France has pledged as much as $2.1 billion in military aid to Ukraine. The summit, known as the Coalition of the Willing, brought together leaders from Britain, Poland, Italy, Turkey and NATO. The meeting follows President Volodymyr Zelensky's agreement to pursue ceasefire talks. French President Emmanuel Macron confirmed the aid package, which includes missiles, warplanes and air defense systems. Although the US was not present, officials say the summit's outcome will be shared with Washington. Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has ruled out lifting sanctions on Russia, saying now is not the time for such a move. His remarks come after a meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and other world leaders in Paris. Listen in.
More support for Ukraine to make sure Ukraine is in the strongest possible position, both now and in further negotiations. Second, complete clarity that now is not the time for lifting of sanctions. Quite the contrary, what we discussed is how we can increase sanctions to support the US initiative to bring Russia to the table through further pressure from this group of countries.
I think more pressure on it, more packages of sanctions. This is important. The second point, as you said, Keir, that new packages to strengthen Ukraine, and we heard of some of the leaders' new packages. We are very thankful to all the leaders.
Well, that's all we have for you on this edition of Morning Brief at 9. But remember, today is the big day when Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be speaking at TV9's annual flagship event, What India Thinks Today. I'll leave you with this glimpse of what's in store for you later today.
News 9 Indian Tigers and Tigresses. The ultimate hunt for India's future football stars. A vision to make India a footballing powerhouse. The journey of young champions begins. The journey kicked off in Delhi with international football legends and young dreamers.
The winner is first born in the mind, and then you have to have an intent to win. Indians want to win.
8 scouting camps, 50,000 registrations, 10,000 selected, only 32 remain. A true search for India's best. From the heart of India's villages to the grand stage of Europe, their journey is nothing short of extraordinary. With Riespo and our partners in Austria, these young talents will train under the best European coaches, preparing for the global stage.
First of all, he scored a goal.
4 of these players will get the golden opportunity to visit VfB Stuttgart, our official partner, and train under Bundesliga standards. An honor like no other, the chance to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The journey of a lifetime begins March 30th.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9. English news as it should be.
And let's begin with the top story that we will be tracking all day today. It is a big day for the TV9 network because today our network will present the most defining event of the year. This is going to be a platform where India's biggest minds, policy architects, business moguls and thought leaders will converge to shape the national and global discourse. Let's give you a sneak peek. Take a look at what we have in store for you on this edition of TV9 What India Thinks Today.